Charlie was a dog that we failed. Now, Charlie should have been sent to a single pet home with adults only who have some dog experience. And Donna, the CEO of Indy Humane, blocked that.
It had been a known thing that he struggled with other dogs in the environment and small children. And I don't feel as though Indy Humane ever set him up for success. He was set up to fail repeatedly. So if they put you into an environment repeatedly to where, hey, I don't get along with you and I don't get along with you, but I'm going to continuously put you out there and say, do good anyway, you're not going to do well.
In 2021, there was a new board chair who should never have been a board chair. And she had a mindset that it's my way all the time, no ifs, ands, and buts, and there's no consensus. The CEO at the time, David Hort, was doing a magnificent job, but it became an adversary kind of a relationship between the board chair and the CEO. In March, a year ago, the board chair and the board executive came in and fired David. And when you fire the CEO, you need to have a plan, but they didn't have a plan. Staff became very disenchanted. There was a lot of pitting one group with another. So through March to November last year, there was this massive exodus of staff. All these people left with more than 100 years of institutional knowledge, all gone.
Working in there, I mean, there are animals that we know like so deeply now and that we've formed attachments to because they've been there so long. And there are animals that if they had the medical care, they would have been out in 2 minutes.
The third vet in 6 months has left. So now we have 2 vets. So yes, that means that animals you can't get to the animals, they will sit longer.
We were basically having to turn down several people a day wanting to know what's going on with these animals. There was no communication. There's obviously no organization within the medical department. Like, I know the medical team would never speak on it because they feel it speaks on them as people. I think it really speaks to the management and organization, and not on them.
So now you bring all these animals in without any space. There are more animals. The medical team can't get to them all. Dogs and cats can be languish. What looks like fearful or whatever can be determined as unadoptable, and euthanasia is starting.
Charlie was the happiest dog I've actually met in a shelter. Charlie was the kind of dog that once he's seen you a couple of times, his whole body is just wiggling and so happy to see you. He gets a visible smile on his face. First time I met him, he was very scared of me. He had a little bit of stranger danger, but that goes away in like 2 times of meeting him. So
the week that I started, which was August 2022, I think was one of the times that he got returned. And I don't know what it was about Charlie, but I, from the very beginning, when I saw him, instantly connected with him.
So Charlie came to the shelter as a transfer from another one as just a little pup. He was adopted out as a little puppy. Charlie honestly did totally fine walking past dogs. He was even in play groups with other dogs for a little while. It was clear that he didn't really seek out any kind of altercations with dogs. It's just that he got stressed out if he was with them for a long time and he couldn't get away anywhere. He was sadly returned due to killing another dog in the home. The adopter said that it was a small dog who would often kind of antagonize Charlie.
Pablo was my chihuahua basically, but was family dog. But yeah. Charlie, sometimes he was a little bit testy with, just because at this point now he's like 8. So he was really protective over me. He was so protective over me that it was like if I was holding him and my husband was coming up to kiss me like goodbye or vice versa, he would bark at the other one of us and do a little growl thing, like he thought he could just eat anything like the world. But that's part of their behavior. They got along very well for the whole entire time, pretty much. Occasionally, if he came near Pablo, if Pablo was eating or something, he would turn over to him and Charlie would just look at him and walk away. He just like, whatever, it never phased. So the only time him and Pablo ever had a thing was the day that the incident happened. That day, just like any normal Sunday, I had went downstairs in our kitchen and we have a pantry, and I was sitting down on the floor going through some stuff, and I was sitting on the floor doing that, and then Pablo had came up, and then he was just like nosing into what I was doing and just insisted on sitting on my lap. And then later, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes or so into it, Charlie had came over and he was wagging his tail and all, just trying to see what was going on. So he came over and they were, he was kind of sniffing at him, and Pablo kind of did it at him or whatever. And then I was like, "You two, stop it." And nothing else was said. I continued kind of moving through the tote thing or whatever. And then at this point, Pablo is getting really angry and starting to growl. For whatever reason, Charlie and him like looked at each other and he started snap. Like Charlie kind of came forward towards him. And at whatever reason it was, Pablo just, I mean, I've never seen him get so angry. Um, and then at that time, Charlie kind of snapped back at him, and then they were kind of like mouth, kind of to mouth. But at that point, Charlie was kind of more getting around the back part of Pablo's, of his scruff back here. And at that time, I just had picked him up and moved him and just yelled at Charlie and Pablo both to stop. Just dogs not getting along, and I'd never seen that out of them before. So I had just taken Pablo, I had him in my arm, and I set him on the floor. When I set him on the floor, I could feel he was just kind of like at a limp thing, but he was still alive. I think it was just like a shock thing. Of course, my husband was at this point pretty upset because he wasn't sure what was going on and just knew that Pablo had been injured. We picked him up, we got shoes on and stuff. I gave him to my husband, and he when I had picked him up and gave him to him, I noticed he had some blood and some other stuff coming kind of out of his nose and his mouth. He was still alive at that point. My thing was, I'm rushing to get that. We have an emergency vet that's maybe 10 minutes from our house. I think like right before we actually got into the parking lot is probably when he ended up passing. When we went in, I just had a feeling. So yeah, it was pretty upsetting, but it was, the thing is, the two of them were both so protective of me. I feel like, and they just both were like trying to protect me, and I just think that their instincts just, I don't know. Because Charlie never once, he never bit me, he never growled at me, never anything to Pablo either.
Euthanasia reports had been coming out. So there had been a few dogs that had been euthanized. Frankie is one. Another one is Gazpacho. Neither one of those dogs should have been euthanized, but they both were.
When I first started, I felt like I always had the support to say no to an adoption and not put a dog in that kind of situation where it's like, I'm not sure, but let's just see how it goes to at least get him out of here. I personally would rather them wait just a little bit longer to find that perfect fit instead of having to go through the trauma of leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back. But with Gazpacho, he went off to a home very soon after he was brought in. It couldn't have been but a couple weeks since he was brought in. I remember how uncomfortable I felt about adopting out. I just didn't think it was a good fit. I didn't have the backing to actually say no. I even talked about it with my manager, and he was like, you don't have anything to say no to. I just hope for the best. But it's obvious that he has a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. And I believe there was more people brought in too soon after being adopted and trying to settle into a new home. If he was able to get out and actually have that time to decompress, you'd see a whole different dog. He had a break. The kennels got to him. He was constantly spinning in his kennel and just a complete wreck. He couldn't even focus long enough to let you open the door or feed him a treat or stuff like that by the end. And so he was put down.
He was technically euthanized for quality of life, which is not technically one of the two reasons that Indy Humane states that they euthanize. It's something that could have been worked with if he was, put in a foster for a significant amount of time. So that one still breaks my heart.
Indy Humane and its leadership failed these dogs. There are no bad dogs, there are bad people. And we had some very aggressive protocols in place because we thought we needed to fit the dog in the best way to succeed. And you can work with these dogs. You can get tests, success. It's not that hard. It means that you have to have the ability and the heart to do the right thing. And to be arrogant, to simply make these kinds of decisions, this one has this one has that, kill them all, that's arrogance. It is not leadership, it is killing dogs. And people need to understand that these dogs could have been and should have been alive and in forever homes.
The euthanasias have gradually become more and more frequent. When I first started, it was probably 2 or 3 months before I even saw the first dog euthanasia, whereas like recently it's been almost every single week that there's been one. We actually did the math, and the behavioral euthanasia rate for dogs has raised 250%.
It's been probably a few weeks where it's been really getting worse with the whole situation at Indy Humane in terms of dogs, I feel, unnecessarily being put down. Even now lately, within a few days, there have been a couple more. In the same day, 2 dogs were put down that we didn't even get any information that it was happening at all. We've never seen this volume of dogs being put down. I mean, I haven't been there that long, but those who have said the same thing.
I feel like previously, like I said, it would have been like a group discussion with members of the canine team who are working with the dog every single day. It's never been just out of the blue like this, like it is now. It's always been things that you kind of see coming. You can see the dog deteriorating in their kennel. You've heard about the bite incidents. You've seen them on bite quarantines and stuff like that. So you've seen other ones coming. With Charlie, it just made no sense. And the biggest thing is that there were no other options given to him. We usually exhaust all options, being a no-kill shelter, before euthanasia is the answer.
And so a message came across for Charlie, and the second I was informed of that, I said, this is absolutely not going to happen.
I was really, really confused because every other euthanasia that I'd heard about, I was able to comprehend it. I was able to understand that maybe this wasn't a quality life and maybe they were never going to get it. But with Charlie, it made absolutely no sense. I was completely confused. I was very thrown off. But I was getting phone calls from every single person I worked with saying, did you hear about this? And we wanted to know where it was coming from.
So we were kind of told abruptly just during the workday. They notified us without very much time in between when we were notified to when it was actually going to happen. It just never really made sense to any of us. He wasn't the type of dog who is a danger to society, at least in my eyes. So there were volunteers that met with Donna. They actually were the ones who found placement for Charlie. They found a foster who had no other dogs, spent a lot of his time at home, and was really just going to be the perfect fit for Charlie. And they were told by Donna that Charlie was going to be euthanized.
basically every single interaction I ever had with Donna was very negative and very threatening. And she basically wanted you to do your work, but not have any say in anything that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to her and she's always seemed like she talks like she cares about animal welfare, which would make sense as being somebody who is a CEO of an animal shelter. But her actions and what she says are completely different things.
I asked her if I found a family, if I could adopt Charlie out, and she abruptly said no. And about 5 minutes later, I was called into an office with her, the entire adoptions team, and Bethany Nelson, and we were all yelled at. And we're basically told to shut up and be quiet.
What transpired from there was a meeting was set up. I attended the meeting. I was a part of the meeting, but essentially Donna did all the talking and just kind of backed up why he was getting euthanized.
Have we reached out to possibly every organization, every person we can reach out to?
We have done everything that we can to find him and the other dogs that are in these kind of situations. And if I was going to try to save a dog, it wouldn't, the first one in line that needed to go to a single dog home wouldn't be one that's killed another animal.
We reached out to these different rescues, 15 different rescues. We fact checked that and didn't reach out to any rescues. They also said that we have a euthanasia protocol and he meets all these stipulations and these criteria to be euthanized. And we said, can we see that? And they said, well, we're in the process of revamping that. So he didn't meet the criteria because the protocol didn't exist.
We're in the process of redefining that protocol for us. It's still, but the protocol that we have that we're not ready to release to the public.
We were asking enough questions repeatedly that Donna, you could tell that she was getting agitated with us just not letting it go. Just not saying, you know what, okay, you say it needs to be euthanized, great.
We have the right and the ability to euthanize dogs that we feel are important to euthanize. Charlie's one of those dogs. The laws are because technically we own these dogs and we can dispose of them how we see fit. We're going to be moving forward with euthanasia.
My jaw dropped. She's sitting directly in front of me, and that is said, and I was like, a background in animal welfare, and that is what we say about those poor little souls that are in the next room that you have access to on a regular basis.
So the idea was the brave one of us, aka Lexi, was going to make a post and basically find cries for help, asking, do you know anybody that can take this dog? He's really amazing and he can't die. It just doesn't make sense.
So the morning after we got the email and were informed of the decision, that's when I made my post. It was kind of just like a last-ditch effort to save Charlie. From there, more posts were being made about Donna at that time. The next morning, the adopters who surrendered him after he did kill their dog, they came in to also meet with Donna. She was not there that time.
The rescues, that was unfounded. Couldn't produce who that behaviorist was, so that was unfounded. And I mean, what ended up happening from all of that is the original adopters came in and said, why are you doing this? He doesn't need to be euthanized.
I started volunteering there pretty recently, and you know, that was kind of like one of the reasons, because I told them, I was like, I feel like I failed Charlie, and then like now being back here because of all this, it's like clearly like you guys did too. As upset as you know, I was, I mean, everybody was with him, like what happened. It would have been just another like senseless like loss, you know what I mean? It wasn't really like probably his fault. And like the one lady didn't really take too kindly to that, but I'm just like, it's the truth. I don't know, probably took an hour of in and out meetings, and they're on phone calls, and then they were just like, well, he's not getting euthanized today.
Yeah.
So.
And Charlie definitely wouldn't have gotten a chance if we wouldn't have went in there on Monday and got that stopped, because we went there before they opened at noon, because he was set to go to be just they were just going to be done with him as of 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Just not even giving him any chances.
And then they came up and they said, we did it. Like, they're not going to put down Charlie. And we all did a huge group hug and basically sobbed together for the first time out of happiness instead of like sadness for days.
I got immediate feedback like, this needed to happen, this needed to happen. Even people who are currently employed there have messaged me and been like, thank you so much for saying something, because he didn't need to be euthanized.
There was this rambling email, or not email, a Facebook post from Indy Humane. We've heard you, we're working to get Charlie to the right rescue group and get him to the right place. The interesting thing was, when I was there, Indy Humane was that place. We were that rescue group. We were the one who would help Charlie find the right place. All that's been taken away.
Something worked, because the snowball effect of that is now Charlie is in a foster and doing so well. I've talked to his foster dad so many times and he's like, this dog is so cool. Like, I love him. We play fetch. We go get in the creek. Like, he's so great. So it's like, you set him up with the right circumstances, whereas the case for any dog, and they thrive.
I mean, I would just say, like, thankful for everybody involved in the process that didn't really, like, give up, you know, because there's a million dogs out there that are kind of gave up on.
Charlie was just a sweetheart, and he was very, very near and dear to someone that's very near and dear to me. So I was one of the volunteers that just started to critically ask questions surrounding a certain dog's euthanasia, and I was asked not to come back because of that. A lot of the staff either definitely has been or possibly has been, you know, intimidated and told, like, if you say anything against Indy Humane or Donna or anything, that you'll get fired, I'm assuming. And
The volunteers who met with Donna, they were dismissed from volunteering anymore.
I knew I was going to be asked to stop volunteering, so before that happened, I effectively resigned. But now am no longer allowed on Indy Humane premises.
I was brought into the office with my supervisor and HR, and they wrote me up for being confrontational. Again, we're just kind of telling me to be quiet, making sure that nothing like that ever happened again. So right after that meeting, I started packing up my office, and the next day I resigned.
Monday comes, Lexi is fired, the 2 volunteers are fired, and all 3 are now banned from on the premise because they somehow disagreed Donna's decision or tried to do the right thing.
So I wasn't just fired and not allowed to come back to work or anything like that. I was also banned from any fostering or volunteer opportunities with Indy Humane. At the time, I had a foster dog who I've had for about a month now, and they told me that they would be there the next morning to come pick her up. It seems like they were mostly going for the social media claim, although they still never gave me exactly what policy I broke. I was simply just trying to find placement for Charlie and save his life.
So now these euthanasia that's happened are done in secret now, right? We're not going to tell anybody because you don't want to be, to have a blowback. It just is, it's those things that make you think, what in the hell is going on?
for a while, nothing was really different. But yeah, I mean, just within the past few months, I feel like it's just suddenly changed. There's all these decisions that none of us know what's going on, and we're just going to show up at the shelter possibly and just learn when we show up that, possibly multiple dogs are gone, and none of us knew why. She claims to care, but then she goes on and does all this stuff that she's been doing of putting down dogs for what seems like nothing.
Just to let you know, we did not euthanize Charlie because of the highly inappropriate social media outstorm that occurred. But consistently, we make the decision to euthanize. When we make that decision, we are always looking for other options, right up until the very last moment. we had 3 of our team members who appropriately, respectfully, and thoughtfully came to us and said, hey, what about this? And what about that? Have you tried this? You know, we tried a lot of that, but we kept at it, and we respected their communications. Adrian was able to locate a rescue placement for him because an animal with a history like that is not an animal that we can take the liability to adopt out at Indy Humane. Transferring it to another nonprofit 501c3 agency can be an option depending on the situation.
And when I was sitting in front of Donna and she said that, and she was so emphatic with it, she was just like, we were standing on our heads, we did everything we could, and to find out in reality, like, that's not what happened. Like, how many other dogs have been since euthanized that didn't need to be?
It used to be more of a group discussion between the behavioral and medical teams. They would discuss the specific dog and try and find other options before euthanasia, whereas now not as many people are included in that. It's kind of a decision made behind closed doors, and we're just informed of it after the fact.
We're no longer going to be sending out those notifications regarding euthanasia. It's something that has been done in the past, over only like the past year and a half, something like that, and we're going to go back to the old practices.
That's not true, Donna. We've been giving ET notices for years, as long as I've been in ACC.
Awesome was in a foster home for a while too. He was actually adopted by his foster. What happened with Awesome, I guess the adopter's mom, I believe it was trying to get him off the bed and actually grabbed him by his collar. Rule number 1, don't do that to a dog, especially a dog that you're not really that comfortable with yet. It spooked him and he bit her multiple times. It was a bad altercation. He was spazzing out the entire time. And yeah, so he was returned and pretty much immediately put down without most of the staff or volunteers being made aware. It was done early in the morning so that nobody would have time to do what I did and like make a post or a plea or anything like that, or even question it really. It was kind of just done in secret. Maddox was another case that was just petrified. Even when you would try to take him outside, you could tell like he was just so nervous, constantly trying to escape just out of fear. So I'm guessing that was his reason. I don't believe he ever had any bite incidents or anything like that. But he wasn't there very long either. I don't know if any efforts were made. It sure didn't seem like it. But I believe if he had that time to get out of there, things might have ended up a lot different for him.
The board has given me these directives that I'm carrying out here. I'm not overtaking their authority. They have given me the authority, and they're happy with the direction that we are going in and confident of the decisions that are being made here.
The dereliction of the board allowing this and not asking questions is beyond anybody's comprehension. And I don't know if they understand what the public sees and why they wonder these things too, because I hear from them and I know people are talking about us, and it's really, really sad.
I mean, people are in the know, like this is now getting attention, which it needs to, because Charlie's not going to be the last one.
If there is no substantial change in the CEO and the board leadership, this will continue to implode. If there is change, I think it's going to take the right kind of leader to come in who can build teams, who understands how to motivate people, how to bring people back, and to build it again. I have this sense of dread and fear this year on the trajectory of Indy Humane unless some massive changes are made.
Because right now I don't know what's going to happen. If with Donna staying, I don't know. how many dogs are going to get put down for nothing, or how many people are going to stop working there, volunteering there. That's all going to damage or hurt the animals more so than anything else.
Like, we have to set them up for success as much as possible. And if we're not doing that, then we're not doing our due diligence.
At this point, I think the only answer is Donna being fired, because I've seen stuff about previous shelters talking about experiences of people working at previous shelters she's been the CEO of, saying similar things to what we're experiencing now, where they were like, lost their no-kill status because of her, and just, same stuff.
Change has got to happen. It won't get there with current leadership on the board or in the CEO position. And I hope that people who see this or read this or hear to speak up. Clearly, enough people about Charlie helped Charlie. And I know that I'm sure that infuriated Donna. At some point, the board can't run away and put their heads in the sand.
Honestly, I would love to go back to Indy Humane and go back to my volunteering on Sundays after she's out of there. And when I resigned from there, I said that in my email. I was like, listen, I loved my time here. And I believe in the mission of this place without her being present, because that mission was what it was before she walked in the door.
Help us. The dogs, the cats need us. I just ask people to speak up and be fearlessly bold.